to BookTube Bestseller TV, and I'm so excited today to have Rhonda Burnaugh with me today. She is the author of the trilogy Catch a Falling Star, Blood Moon on the Rise, and Solstice of the Heart. She is a former psychiatric nurse, and so I can't wait to dive into that. But you said you've been a behavioral health professional for most of your life, and your first
Right.
patient wants to be a writer, and that's in Catch a Falling Star, correct?
That was the first thing I wrote, correct, other than some short stories.
Okay, and then also you volunteer with an animal rescue group helping to rescue Chihuahuas.
Yes.
So of course I have to ask about that. How many Chihuahuas have you worked with so far, and what have you learned in your Chihuahua rescue activities?
Well, I've had probably 20 to 30 Chihuahuas come and go over the last 7 or 8 years. Currently, I have four. If you would have asked me when I started this a couple years ago with writing, I had 6 or 7.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
kind of tend to take in the senior Chihuahuas that nobody's going to want to adopt, so I end up keeping them. So that's kind of how I end up with a little flock of Chihuahuas around my feet.
Aw, I mean, you gotta love them. They're so cute and small and hyper. Are they all hyper, or is that just kind of a...
That's sort of a myth. Actually, mine are very calm. I did go in my office and shut the door, so none of them are in here because typically, if they think I'm doing something, they're kind of like children and they want to capture your attention and they'll bark. So I thought that wouldn't be a good thing for this particular interview. So they're not present at the moment.
Gotcha. Well, we're pretty casual, so it'd probably be just fine, but okay, so looping back around to your previous life as a psychiatric nurse, how does that inform your writing? Like, do you bring people into your stories that you've met in real life, or how does that kind of inform what you do now?
Actually, I don't incorporate any former patients that I've ever had. But I would have to say one of the things that I do is with my characters would be a psychological profile of them. So it's just like if you've ever taken an MMPI test or personality profile test, I sort of do the exact same thing with each of my characters. So I understand them. I know what makes them tick, what they like, what they don't like, and why they like it or don't like it.
Oh, that's great. So, one of the things that you and I are going to talk about is how to create characters that are believable. So, people you love to love and people you love to hate. So,
Right.
is that kind of part of what you do in your writing with the psychological profile?
Well, yes, because if you think of people that you meet just in everyday life, there's no such thing as a perfect person. I mean, everybody has nuances. They have things that are likable about them and things that are not so likable about them. So even if you have a hero in your story, they can't be perfect 100% of the time. They have to have some sort of a character tag that makes them a little different, sets them apart, and makes them a real person, because as we know, we're not robots, we're all real people. So we have to be able to present our characters in the same way. Otherwise, they don't seem like real people, they're like robots. Nobody can be good all the time, and no one can be bad all the time. You
Oh,
got to be a
that's
little of both.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And some of the most interesting characters, the best fiction, are the characters that are fully developed. And, like, Game of Thrones just kind of came to mind when you were talking about nobody's
Hmm.
completely good and nobody's completely bad. And that to me, that series kind of illustrates how that can be used so masterfully in creating a full profile of
True.
a character or of a person. So,
Right.
segueing from Game of Thrones to your books. Let's put them on the same plane here. So your trilogy, and actually you prequel too. So you have the prequel book and then the
Yes.
trilogy. So then you started with book number 1. So you want to tell us a little bit about that storyline and kind of the things you were exploring in it?
Catch a Falling Star, it's sort of hard to peg it in a particular genre, but if you were, I would call it contemporary women's fiction. It's not a romance book. It's got a little of everything in it for anyone. It would definitely not be a child's book, but it would be a young adult book or something that I've had men and women read the book. And had lots of, not lots, but I'd like to have more reviews, but the reviews I've gotten have been good. You can check it out on Amazon, and you probably have. But this is a story about the main character is a guy named Michael, and Michael is a rock star, kind of more of a pop star, actually. And the first thing, of course, you have to debunk in that is everybody thinks of a rock star as a certain type of person. And what I didn't want Michael to be was a typical rock star kind of person and just fit into that little niche. So the first person that I really worked on building character was with Michael. And then Michael comes into the story in the very beginning. You meet him as a teenager, and then as you get into the first chapter of the book, you see that he's an adult. And as a young man, it's not really a secret, but he has a very serious illness and goes back to his hometown, which is Marysville, California, to hide from fans and get a diagnosis and see what's going on. He's accompanied by his best friend, Buddy, and you later kind of find out they're more like brothers. They have that bromance, I guess. And his name is DJ. And these two guys come from totally different backgrounds and environments, and they're very different, but they play off of each other. Because they're going to this small town where Michael spent part of his childhood, and Michael hates it there, but that's where his sister lives, and it's also where he meets up with a priest by the name of Joe de Blasio, and a nurse named Ani Cavattini. Now, all these characters come together, and then there's one other character that comes in to play, which is a girl named Seraphine, who's Native American, and they had a crush on each other in high school. So they all kind of converge, and you get to know them and their background and who they are and what makes them tick. So as he discovers that he has a catastrophic diagnosis, he's gravely ill, Michael decides that he wants Ani to come live with him at his home in Maui, where he and DJ live. And they really, part of the persona of the whole story is that there's the family you're born with and the family you create. And all of these people are kind of misfits that create their own family and help and support each other on this journey. And they think that they're kind of helping Michael with all of the issues he's dealing with. And really, as you transition through the book, you find that it's really Michael helping all of them. So.
Very good. So then in book number 2, you kind of switched genres or switched gears a bit and went into
a lot.
Okay.
People have said to me, it's like if I didn't know you had written the first book, I would have thought 2 different people wrote it. I think I'm going to take that as a compliment, because the second one is a psychological thriller. And you really got to get into the head of a whole new character that comes into the scene by the name of Gabriel de Vilbus. And he's the kind of guy that you love, but you just don't quite trust him. You can't quite figure him out. And there's something about Gabriel that just throws you off all the time. So you love him, you hate him, you love him. And then you, as things transpire through the work of that book, you find out who Gabriel really is and what he's really about.
Okay. Okay, and so then book number 3 wraps it all up.
It does.
So as far as, are we talking romance, or are we talking suspense, or a combination of the two?
A combination.
Okay.
A combination of romance and suspense.
Okay, so one of the things that I liked about what you said about book number 3 is that you had to say goodbye to your characters as well as your readers, you know, and so then you kind of feel that loss, that separation.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you went back and did the prequel.
I did the prequel at the request of my readers, of the fans that I have. They kept sending me emails and saying, how's DJ? What is Sarah doing? How are Joe and Ani? What are they doing now? And it almost kind of got funny because I had to say, well, it ended with book 3 that, you know, these really aren't real people.
Oh, funny.
And they said, but we're not done with them.
Oh, wow. What a compliment. My gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I said, well, how about a prequel to, and that way you can see their childhood and kind of get to know them. So, and it was tricky to do because I had to stop the prequel without giving anything away that was going to be presented to people in Catch a Falling Star.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. But what was fun about that is constantly intertwining their lives. I mean, all of these characters met, or their paths crossed with each other at different points in their life, and they never knew it.
Oh, that's interesting. That adds a whole new layer of
It does.
complexity for you as the writer, but then also really interest for the characters themselves. That's fascinating.
Well, and what you find out at the end of Solstice of the Heart is that this has been a spiritual journey, and that all of our lives are predestined and interconnected, which is the whole star connection. The whole creation of stars, they're the stars. And they really caught each other as falling stars as they went through different dimensions of change and growth. And I had to grow with them. I couldn't stay in a certain place because I had to change the way I viewed the characters as they changed and transpired into different levels of where they needed to go.
Wow. So
it was hard because sometimes I didn't want to let them grow up, or I didn't want to let them go. But in order to move the story forward, I had to. I can remember one night when and I don't know, you know, I don't want to give the whole thing away, but there's a really sad parting in the first book, and I remember a lot of times I sit up at 3 a.m. in the morning because that's when some of my best ideas come to me. And I'm sitting there and I'm writing this, and I'm sobbing. It's like I'm saying goodbye to my best friend.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
And sometimes in order to really get to know and understand these characters, and I was trying to explain to someone the other day, and I want to just preface this by saying I'm not bipolar or schizophrenic, but I would decide, it would be my day off, and I was going to take some time during that day to literally be in the skin of that particular character. I would dress like them. I would eat what they would eat or not eat. For example, Michael hates peanut butter, and there's a reason for that. And so I would make sure that I had nothing with peanut butter, or I would figure out how would they interact with this person that I just met. What would they say? What would they do? How would they treat that particular problem? And just sort of play with it and work with it. I never went out in the stores and did crazy things, but I would just sort of put them on as if I were wearing that particular character at the moment, and figure out what they liked, what they didn't like, and how it felt to be in that space with them.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. It's almost like method acting, but for writers.
Yes, that's
Oh,
exactly
that's
right.
fascinating. Wow. I've never heard of that, but that is such a neat concept, you know? I mean, of course, I've never
Yeah.
written, well, I have written fiction, but not well, so.
Yeah. That's my genre, but I don't think I could do nonfiction and do it in the same way.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I would say if you were writing nonfiction and trying that, I mean, just to take a scenario out of history, but if you were to be present at the funeral of John F. Kennedy, what would you wear? How would you feel? What would be the smell in the air? What are the sound of that beating drum as the horse and the cascade went down the street? I mean, you have to feel it, because if you don't feel it, you can't let your reader feel it. And you can't, and I know we always talk about, you show things, you don't tell, but you have to let your reader in. And if they can't feel it, they won't buy it. They won't buy the character. That's why I say the character has to be believable.
Right.
Michael was a really great guy, really super guy. And it was easy to fall in love with him. But Michael had to have his quirks. Michael had to have more than one side to him. He had to be multidimensional. You had to understand what made Michael tick, what made him different than DJ, but what made the two of them brothers. How and why did they connect when they're such opposite people? And then when you put a priest in with a rock star, how is it that these two managed to become best friends? Why? I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't say, well, these two met and became friends. You have to show a progression of that. And the emotional connection has to also be part of the change and part of the challenges that you put your character through. Your character has to have something that they're struggling with. And it doesn't have to be a major disease. It can be a big decision in their life. And Joe had a huge decision to make. He became a priest for all the wrong reasons and found he was falling in love with Ani. So what was he going to do with that? And the person who picked up on it and knew that this was going on was Michael, who helped initiate them to see what was really going on between the two of them, because they were both denying it. So Michael pulled them together. Michael kept connecting people to each other. Michael was like the core of everything that was going on. So, and Michael had an ex-wife and a little girl that also complicated the picture. So how does he juggle this? And some of Michael's is wonderful and magnanimous, huge character that he was, when he dealt with his ex-wife Gloria, he was not so nice. You could kind of see pieces and parts of him that, and he and Gloria didn't get along, and you could see why.
Oh,
So sometimes,
fascinating.
even though Gloria was supposed to be kind of the bad person, you could see why she would get disgusted with him.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
just knowing from personal experience that some people just kind of bring out the worst in you, and you're not real sure why
True.
sometimes. And then some people bring out
Yeah.
the best. So, yeah, yeah, I can totally
Well,
see that.
and with him, yeah, it was like, he was a very driven person, and he was very success oriented, and that meant that sometimes other people got left behind.
Right.
So,
A question I've been wanting to ask writers, just in general, for a really long time that I've never ever asked before. But I'm wondering how you can write from a man's perspective if you're a woman, and vice versa. So many writers manage to do that masterfully, and I'm not really sure how. Like you talk about, one of the topics you explore is the guy relationship. And so, as opposed to a women's relationship, and we kind of sort of understand that, but how are you able to do that as a woman, just kind of from the outside looking in?
Well, I think I'll go back to psychological profiles of people. And I've worked with, in my background as a psych nurse, of working with men, women, adolescents, all types. I mean, I think it really has given me a perspective on being able to see into and reach out to people, whether they're men or women. Because really, men and women are alike, but not that different either. I mean, they still have the same feelings, and everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants to be loved and understood. Everyone's trying to reach a goal. And in this particular case, and in this book, one of the big issues is that finding their purpose in life. What are they supposed to be doing? And where are they supposed to be? And what's it supposed to look like? So getting into the guy's head wasn't any much really different than getting into the woman's point of view, because their needs are all the same. When you really break it all down, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so really bottom line is, yes, we're different, but we're more alike than we're different.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, Rhonda, so tell me what your next big thing is. What is your next book, your next project, your next thing?
Well, I've just finished writing my 5th novel. Tentatively, it's called Small Sacrifices, and it's all new characters, of course, all new people, and I'm in the process now of doing edits and rewrites on that. It's been slower. I don't believe I did this, but I did. I hammered out the trilogy in less than a year. And I don't think I slept that year. It was a cold, dark winter in Ohio. So I made the best of it, that and a little Chardonnay. And so this next one, I wanted to take it in a whole different, I like going in different directions. And this one really is, I would say, it's again got a psychological thriller component to it. I really think I enjoy that. And these characters are definitely a little twisted, a little dark. I was a little bit surprised. Sometimes I'll see something, and I'll see something on TV, or I'll pick up another book and I'll say, well, that's funny, because that really hits in some of the same areas I'm actually working in with these particular characters. So, recently I got into watching, and of course it's not a new book, The Handmaid's Tale, but it's on Hulu. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so interesting, because there's a little piece of that in this next novel that I'm working on. So people who are sacrificing their life for other people and get trapped in some of their own lies and deceit, and then can't figure out how to get out of it. And, everybody has something that they want. Again, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's love, and sometimes it's just a very, pure relationship, but usually it isn't. So these guys have come from different areas, and it's set in a winery in Napa Valley. And I think I have to admit, too, that when I was writing Catch a Falling Star, I actually got on an airplane, and as I said, I live in Ohio, and a lot of my characters come out of Ohio, but I love California. I think my heart has always been there. So I flew out and I rented a car out of San Francisco and drove to Marysville, California to see if it was actually like I wrote it.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Very
So a lot of
good.
my characters and my settings start in California. There's usually some Ohio pieces that I pull in because I live here now. And then of course, Michael and DJ live in Maui, so I had to do a lot of investigating in Maui, which was a little bit fun because I wanted to check in on the real estate there, and then started having real estate agents calling me and saying, "We have $1 million house on the beach, just like what you're describing."
You're like, good for you.
Not today. Got to sell a few more books.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Those
Yeah,
are,
in Marysville, and if you read the first chapter in the book, I kind of integrated in. But I remember I went to visit a library there, and the woman said, "Oh, if you'd only come a week earlier, you just missed the annual prune festival." I'm like, "Oh no, how could I miss the prune festival? Who
oh,
even knew
wow.
somebody had a prune festival, right?" She goes, "Oh no, we're the prune capital of California." I'm like, "Well, that's pretty impressive." So I
Wow.
used that
Gosh.
as part of the description of Marysville. So
Yeah, a little local color there. That's great.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been so much fun to get to talk with you. And you do have a freebie for us, The Creation of Stars on Amazon. Is that a free download, or should we go to your website to find that?
I'm probably going to have to go out on Amazon and set that up. I'll do that because right now as a Kindle, I think it's 99 cents. So I'm going to have to go out there and fix that for you ASAP so people can get the prequel for free. That was part of why I went ahead and did the prequel too, so that I had a free giveaway to give to people.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Okay, so I'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a real pleasure to get to talk with you today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you too.
Thanks so much.
And sharing something I'm passionate about.
Yeah, it's always fun to talk about books.
It is.